Do you remember those old wives' tales you used to hear growing up about common instances that just happened a part of life, and you actually started to believe that that was the way things unfolded? Well, that's kind of the way I feel about college football, primarily when it comes to coaching searches in the SEC. A lot of people believe the notion, and it's well and true, that simply because you don't have a background in the Southern region means you're destined to fail as a head coach. I hate to be the bearer of bad news. If you are somebody that buys into that notion, you are vastly mistaken. So let's go ahead and talk about it. But hell, if you're new here, welcome on into the channel, people. My name is Cole Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football daily. Simply because the clock has struck zero on 2023 does not mean we are going to stop making content anytime soon. We got a banner. We're starting live shows this week. We got a ton of content looking forward to the transfer portal, coaching searches galore. So if this is the fix you need to survive the dreaded offseason of college football, this is the place for you. Hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment telling me your thoughts on the notion that because you haven't worked in the SEC means you're going to fail. Do you believe it? Do you think it's a load of crap? What is your opinion of the situation? Tell your friends, your family, your mortal enemies, best of bros, SEC fans, college football aficionados, and everybody out there about this channel, because we are on the race to become the #1 YouTube show talking college football daily. Go ahead and follow me on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. I call it Twitter. You call it X. We all call it Instagram. But that way, conversations surrounding our favorite sport never have to stop flowing. There is the inclination that simply because you've never worked in the SEC, you are destined to fail. And people truly believe that because you don't understand the lay of the land, you don't understand the culture, and you don't know the backings of what makes this the best conference in college football, and yes, hate to be the bearer of bad news, it 100% is, a lot of people are tuned off by hires when they're made. I'm just going to go ahead and list where these head coaches resided and went to college before they made their way down to the SEC. Starting with Kalen DeBoer, who was at Sioux Falls. Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin was at Fresno State. Kirby Smart was at Georgia. Josh Heupel was at Oklahoma. Sam Pittman was at Pittsburgh State, not in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, but Pittsburgh, Kansas. Mark Stoops went to Iowa. Jeff Lebby went to Oklahoma. Hugh Freeze went to Southern Miss. Billy Napier went to Furman in North Carolina. Mike Elko is from Penn. Eli Drinkwitz went to Arkansas Tech. Brian Kelly went to, anybody know? Assumption College. Good luck finding that on the map. Shane Beamer was at Virginia Tech. No surprise there because of his dad, Frank. Clark Lee went to Vanderbilt. Steve Sarkisian was the quarterback at BYU. And Brett Venables was running the show up at Kansas State. Any of those names ring a bell in terms of sustainability? Maybe one. Kirby Smart, who has won back-to-back national champions and went on one of the most epic runs we saw at a program over a 3-year span. 29 wins, also probably could have won a third national championship, has a roster gunning for the likes of a college football playoff appearance in 2024. Yeah, outside of that, there's not really a lot of correlation saying that a coach has to spend time in the SEC or work in the SEC or play in the SEC to understand SEC culture. What this really boils down to is 3 main elements. And if you have these elements, you're in a really good spot as a program. Number 1, concept of knowledge. How well do you understand the X's and O's of the game? Do you have an offense that's potent, that will score a lot of points, that will always keep defensive coordinators on their toes? Defensively, are you fundamentally sound in certain areas that make you a lethal path to always go ahead and play against on Saturdays? Do you have the backing and belief of those inside of that locker room in terms of coaches that know how to run your formalities to a T? If you understand the X's and O's and you understand how to game plan against some of the best masterminds in the sport, you have a shot. Number 2, recruiting. Recruiting is more so than simply just going into the house of a kid from Florida and say, hey, you want to come to Bryant-Denny Stadium and strap it up on Saturdays instead of playing in Gainesville? You want to come play in the SEC instead of going to the Big 12 or the ACC? We like your talent, son. We think that you're going to be special. It comes with understanding relationships, and those relationships can be formed in a ton of different avenues. Just because you don't reside in the South doesn't mean you don't have friends from the South. I use this analogy a lot when it comes to working relationships because I'm from Texas. I grew up in Texas. I love Texas. I've always been a Lone Star State boy from top to bottom and always will be. But in my career, my best friend is from New York. One of my best friends that I met in college at Alabama is from California. I have friends from Georgia. I have friends from Alabama. I have friends from Tennessee. I have friends from Oregon. I have friends from Oklahoma, and I have friends from Chicago, all across the country. And if I'm going to go ahead and start a business, I need to make sure I hire the right people to make sure that our business is booming. Doesn't mean they have to come from one certain region. Simply because I struck my stuff down in Nashville does not mean I have to hire everybody from the volunteer state to be a part of my staff. I need to hire people that understand how to get the best results. And that comes with coaching. And coaching ultimately is a big selling point when it comes to setting the tone in recruiting. Do you have people that understand certain hotbeds across the country? Do you have people who know where there are residing talents and unknown gems across this great United States? Are there people that can build those relationships with coaches, with those in the weight room, with really prospects that are 3, 4, 5 years down the line? And then when it's their time to shine, you still are involved. If you have that, you're in a really good spot in the SEC. And number 3, how do you build a locker room? Do players want to run through a wall when they have to defend you? And more importantly, when times are tough, are they still giving 110%, or have they already clocked out and started looking for the transfer portal? Those are things that are must-haves in the SEC. And so long as that exists, you're in a good spot. How much will you be able to get out of a locker room that's already 5-7 and knows that they have no shot of playing for a bowl game? How much will you get out of a locker room during the offseason when you're trying to build a roster that is going to fortify and make headwaves in 2024 or 2025? How do you get the buy-in from the players to understand that there are grandeur pastures out there in the SEC with multiple funds when it comes to NIL? But they want to stick around and they want to play for you. They want to be a part of the culture that you're implementing, and they want to be able to send their kids to play for a coach like you. Those are the things that are essential if you want to be successful. I can tell you this much: what Kalen DeBoer has done so far in a week on the job in Tuscaloosa is enough to go ahead and make you salivate if you are an Alabama fan. Kane Womack is not a name that just grows on trees among Group of 5 coaches. He is well respected in the world of college football because of his tenacity and because of his ability to understand talent. And now he's leaving a job in Mobile to become your defensive coordinator. A guy like Josh Heupel may have grown up in Norman and been a hero for the Sooners, and he spent most of his time in South Florida, has a little bit of experience in the SEC. No, you want to go ahead and hire him in Knoxville because of the offensive understandings and concepts that keep your team ahead of the curve. Going into next season, there's a lot of people buying stock in Nico Iamaleava and what this offense can be because if they realize who's calling the shots. And this is a team that's going to be a dark horse to make it to a college football playoff. What about a guy like Eli Drinkowitz? The dude's a nerd. He wears Air Force Ones, big funky glasses, and comes off as kind of a condescending tool at times. But people want to play for him. People want to buy into what he's selling. People are excited about what's going on in Columbia. And the same thing goes for potentially a guy as a Shane Beamer. The same thing goes for a guy who is able to win over the locker room and the fan base like Sam Pittman. Brian Kelly. Kelly has no experience down in the South. Kelly is about as big East Coast Midwest guy as you can imagine. Grand Valley State, Cincinnati, and Notre Dame were his 3 stops before he decided to replace Ed Orgeron down in Baton Rouge. He right now is the number 1 recruiting class going into 2025. Back-to-back 10-win seasons. Just had the number 1 total offense in college football led by Mike Denbrock. He had a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback. And the team probably wasted a really strong year of offensive concepts because they weren't able to fortify the defense. But you know what? Wash and learn, Brian Kelly, because he's making moves that way. His team is fundamentally sound on that side of the football, so this never happens again. Adaptability. You win, you lose, you die. Steve Sarkisian building a culture, sending players out of Austin, better prepared for the NFL with a higher draft grade than they could have imagined. Brent Venables implementing defensive fundamentals in practice that really are going to set the tone for this roster in a brand new version of college football. There are a lot of programs right now that are seeing the way that their schools are built, and they're saying, why in the hell would we change anything that we're doing? So For those of you that want to buy into the notion that a guy like Kalen DeBoer is going to fail in the SEC because he doesn't have backing down in the South, he doesn't understand what Dreamland Barbecue is all about. He doesn't understand what the ambiance is of a Saturday walking on the Hall of Champions. Lane Kiffin is a perfect example of this too. Any one of these coaches, as long as you're able to produce and as long as you're able to win, that's MO number one, and that's the number one culture builder. You have winning, you have good times ahead. And a lot of these coaches find ways to win. And most of these coaches would be successful anywhere outside of the SEC. Simply because you've never been in the SEC does not mean you won't be successful. Two of the best coaches to reside in the 2000s really didn't spend a lot of time down south before they arrived in Tuscaloosa, Baton Rouge, and Gainesville, respectively. They won national titles. They were heralded for their results of being able to change the SEC for the better. And more importantly, they paved the way for a lot of coaches to get their head starts elsewhere. If you're good at your job, you will be successful anywhere. So go ahead and buy into the SEC means more, which means you got to get guys who are only from there. If you win, you win. And if you win in the SEC, you're set for life. A guy like Kalen DeBoer can have the exact same results as a Lane Kiffin, the exact same results as a Steve Sarkisian, the exact same results as an Urban Meyer or a Nick Saban. You just got to give it time, just like you do with any other of the 15 coaches that are currently calling the shots in the SEC. Doesn't mean because you only played for the school, you're destined to be successful. Just like it doesn't mean because you're on the outside looking in, you're in trouble. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.